The task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts. C.S. Lewis. Recruitamentary. Empowering your employment. Featuring our guest, Brian Robinson. Today, our guest is going to be Brian Robinson. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing all right, man. For the listeners who aren't super familiar with your entire body of work, why don't you give us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a talent acquisition professional, more commonly known as a recruiter. Throughout my career, I've been in talent acquisition now for about the last 8 years. And I kind of just started out in, entry-level recruiting jobs, helping candidates find their next career opportunities, and have progressed into more of a strategic leader within the businesses I work for, where I'm working with hiring managers and business leaders to identify the talent that they need and then put plans and processes in place to attract the right folks, get them in the door, and then retain them for the length of their career. So working across the full spectrum of talent acquisition.
That's awesome. Now, is that something that you really focused on doing initially when you started out, or did you sort of bounce around industries?
Yeah, so I'd never pictured myself as a recruiter, man. I actually began my career right out of college as an outside sales professional. And about 3 years in, I really realized that I love the hunt and the chase and the dynamic nature of sales. But rather than dealing with products and services, I was more akin to working with people and managing opportunities and careers. And it just kind of led me to that perfect intersection of recruiting and talent acquisition.
That's cool. And I feel like I should have been doing recruiting myself, because there's so much flexibility when you're actually dealing with people. I'm sure there's a lot more headaches to it as opposed to a product or service. Is there something that really stands out to you about recruiting you feel like the most passionate about? What's the reason why you're doing this every day?
Absolutely. There's one specific thing, and I think most good folks that do what I do will tell you the same thing. It's the opportunity to extend a job offer to somebody. When you work with somebody who pours their sweat and tears into chasing down an opportunity and interviewing maybe up to 3-4 times, flying all across the country, once you finally get to that finish line and they get the job offer and they accept and you've made everybody happy, it's a win-win-win. Those are the moments that I get out of bed for.
It's the same way when I'm working with a client. I had a phone call with somebody today, and they're actually rebranding their business. And it's a smaller company. It's a local to the area. The guy was really looking for a very specific need. And after talking to him, you just realize that there's so much more going on. And to have that rapport with somebody to understand, hey, you know what? I've been there. I've worked and helped and been successful with people like you. And just to feel them kind of be like, wow, this is going to be okay. I can only imagine that's like the same thing with a successful, hire or candidate for you.
Absolutely. And what you're talking about, man, putting that human touch back in everything that we do. We live in the golden age of technology where it seems like some sort of bot or app can do just about everything we do. But the nuance lies in how humans work together and how we treat people. So whether it be, marketing strategically like you're doing, or recruiting and, finding jobs for folks, it really comes down to how you interact with the people that you're working with and the value you're able to provide to people through that human approach. I mean, that's kind of my whole approach to how I do things.
Yeah, and the value is a really good point that you hit on too, because again, all this algorithms and automated processes is great. The ATS systems cannot identify value. They can't see long-term foresight. It's a human thing. And again, when you have a chance to actually sit down and talk to people, if you read a resume, you're not going to see that. It has to jump out at you, or you got to know that person and say, you know what, this is interesting. This reminds me of me, or this reminds me of a situation, or you know what, I see something in here of this individual, of this candidate, that this could really be something, and let's give them a shot.
Yes, that's exactly right. You reminded me of, a situation earlier today, actually. I was looking at a resume, and I had seen a post on LinkedIn this morning talking about people that have gaps in their resume. Hey, maybe I was out of work for a year or two for various reasons. And the post was saying, don't just assume that people's gaps are negative. Give them a shot, ask questions, connect with them, network with them, and find out how you can be of service to them. And I had that exact situation today. A young lady had a 3-year gap in her resume. Turns out she was, in the military, came home, and then was fighting cancer for a year and a half. And at first glance on her resume, man, you don't know that, but you give a phone call, you chat a little bit. And this lady had picked up so many transferable skills from her time in the military, but more importantly from fight for her life over the past 18 months that she was able to bring to companies. And so it was a pleasure to speak to her. And then we spent time figuring out how does she make those skills marketable so that, a future employer would be willing to give her a shot. So that speaks to exactly what you're talking about, man, is being pro-human and spending time engaging with people.
It really is, and with that actually leads me into one of my other questions. What is essentially the best or even worst advice you've heard or have gotten while you were yourself looking for your next opportunity?
Sure. So I think the worst advice, I actually, again, was talking to someone on LinkedIn about this today. The worst advice I've ever heard is this old adage that good things come to those who wait. Honestly, I don't even know who came up with that, man, but it's so counterintuitive to everything that today's world requires, right? I mean, good things come to people that hustle and that people that put themselves out there and take chances and are proactive and motivated and engage with other humans and work together and collaborate, right? Waiting, I've never seen anybody just sit around and wait and have something land in their lap. So to me, that was the worst advice, and it kind of makes people more passive as they go about their job search or whatever it is, expecting good things to come to them. So that's some advice that I always steer people away from. As far as the best advice that I've been given, it's, again, something you probably heard as a kid. It's not what you know, but who you know. And I think what you know is certainly important. But in today's day and age, the ATS algorithms, like you mentioned, and computers doing a lot of work for people in the job search business, being able to reach out and network, have a conversation, and articulate your skill set and value is a dying kind of practice. But it makes all the difference in a candidate kind of setting themselves apart as that top talent.
It really is. I think the only person who's made money out of waiting is the guy selling the tickets at the counter that you just pull at the dispenser.
That's right.
That's the only thing I can think of, because I mean, there are certain times where you have to, and this was something I was speaking about with somebody the other day as well, as far as for investing in engagement. There is a time for doing that. There's a process. There's there's layers and methodologies to employ while doing that, but there's never really a time of doing nothing. Even idle has its methodologies while you're in the process of doing something. I mean, you can't be 200% all the time. You're going to burn out, but there's times to do sprints. I used to, a couple of my buddies from way back in the days of high school and college, they were cross country runners. You can't get those relay guys to do cross country. They, drop dead. It's just not happening. Right. But it's the same thing. And it's just, I don't know when it's a good time to not do anything. I mean, it happens all the time. You reach out and you say, you know what, here's my situation. If I don't do it, I'm always going to regret never trying, and I'm always going to think about the what ifs. And if I try and I fail, at least I learned something. I know I tried, and I can try it again because I tried it that way and it didn't work. We can try it this way this time.
Absolutely, man. And, listening to you say that, it kind of brings up the point. So for me, talent acquisition, finding jobs is kind of my lane. And I oftentimes deal with candidates who I ask them, so what have you been doing to prepare for this job? Well, I just found out about the job today, so I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And my mindset is always, man, you should have been doing X, Y, and Z in preparation for this however many days, weeks, or months ago. Don't wait for something to be right in front of your face to chase it down. Get your ducks in a row and do everything you can so when that chance does come in front of you, you're ready to go. I was raised off of a saying that I love and I want to share with you, man, is people oftentimes think about luck being what it takes to get a job. Well, luck wasn't on your side today. And I was always taught that luck is just the intersection of preparation and opportunity, right? So when that opportunity comes around, what have you been doing to prepare for it? And the people that seize those opportunities, they didn't just wake up the day that it was there and start preparing for it. They've been prepared days, weeks, months in advance. And so that's something I would impart on anybody looking for a job is get out there and get your credentials in order. Go back to school if you need to. Spend time shadowing or whatever it is. But make sure when that opportunity comes, you've done everything to be prepared for.
Have your own recruiter or candidate story that you'd like to share with us? If you're listening on YouTube, comment below. Otherwise, feel free to email your experience to ask@recruitamentary.com. You can find our full conversation of this episode on YouTube at youtube.com/recruitamentary. Thanks for checking out this episode, and feel free to like, subscribe, and share the content. A Mike Tech Studios production.